They called him too old, too late, too quiet. But Morgan Freeman didn't need noise, he needed time. This is not just a story of success. It's the rise of a legend. Welcome to Legends Unfolded. Morgan Freeman was born on June 1, 1937, in Memphis, Tennessee. It was the Jim Crow South, a place where the color of your skin shaped nearly every aspect of your life. Black children weren't taught to dream, they were taught to survive. Morgan was the youngest of 5 children, born into a family that struggled daily. His father, Morgan Sr., was a barber, often gone, working long hours or battling his inner demons. His mother, Mamie, worked as a cleaning lady, scrubbing floors, washing laundry, anything she could do to keep her children fed. The Freemans didn't stay in one place for long. In Morgan's early years, the family moved from Memphis to Greenwood, Mississippi, then north to Indiana, then Chicago, always chasing better work, better wages, a better shot at life. But poverty followed them. Morgan grew up in small, crowded homes. Sometimes he shared a mattress with his siblings. Sometimes they skipped meals. But in those long, quiet hours of hardship, a voice was growing inside him. A voice full of depth, patience, and wisdom, years before the world would hear it. He was a quiet child. Not loud, not wild. He watched. He listened. Teachers often said he had an old soul, a presence far beyond his age. He wasn't just another student, he carried something. At the age of 8, something remarkable happened. His teacher cast him in a class play. The role wasn't big, but when young Morgan stepped on that tiny school stage and spoke his first line, the room fell still. Something stirred in him, something powerful. That feeling of becoming someone else, of holding an audience's breath in the palm of your hand, it lit a spark in his soul that never went out. From that day forward, he knew what he wanted to be. Not a doctor, not a soldier. He wanted to act, to tell stories, to move people. But in the America Morgan Freeman grew up in, acting wasn't considered a dream, especially not for poor black kids from the South. It was fantasy, a luxury. And so, like many dreams, it got buried beneath reality. After high school, he joined the United States Air Force. At first, the military felt like an escape, structured, stable, disciplined. He trained as a radar technician and hoped to become a pilot. But the truth hit him fast. He didn't want to fly planes. He wanted to soar in a different way. In the sky of imagination. On stages, in scripts, inside stories. After 4 years of service, Freeman made a decision most people wouldn't dare. He walked away from the Air Force to pursue acting. No plan B, no safety net. Just a fragile dream and an iron will. He moved to Los Angeles and enrolled in acting classes, while working side jobs to survive. He took any work he could find. Janitor, clerk, dancer. At one point, he even danced at the 1964 World's Fair just to earn a paycheck. Some nights, he had nothing but a can of soup for dinner. Some months, rent came late. But the dream never faded. Even when doors didn't open. Even when no one believed in him. He kept training, kept studying, kept showing up. In the late 1960s and early 70s, roles for black actors were few and often insulting. Hollywood didn't want depth. It wanted stereotypes. Morgan wanted more. The world told him he was too old, too serious, too black. But he refused to bend to the mold. He wouldn't play a clown when he knew he could play a king. So he turned to the stage. He honed his craft in small theaters, in community productions, in Shakespeare festivals. Audiences were small, pay was smaller, but his talent grew louder. Years passed. The rejections piled up. Still, Morgan Freeman did not quit. Because he understood something most people don't. You don't have to be seen to be valuable. You don't have to be famous to be good. For decades, he lived in the shadows of the industry, waiting, preparing, becoming. He didn't know it yet, but a simple children's television show was about to bring his voice to millions of homes. And after that, everything would change. The stage had become his training ground, but the world still hadn't recognized the power in his voice. Until one day, it did. And it happened in the most unexpected place, a children's TV show. It was the early 1970s. Morgan Freeman was in his 30s, still unknown, still struggling. He had done theater. He had done off-Broadway. But mainstream television? Hollywood? Still silent. Then came a show called The Electric Company. It was a bold experiment by PBS, meant to educate children on reading and grammar in a fun, musical way. Producers needed someone smart, warm, and magnetic. They found Morgan Freeman. At first, he hesitated. Was this really the opportunity he'd waited his whole life for? A children's program? But something inside him said, "Say yes." And so he did. From 1971 to 1977, Morgan Freeman played a wide range of characters on The Electric Company. He was Easy Reader, a cool, funky guy who loved books. He played Vincent the vegetable vampire, Count Dracula's plant-loving cousin. He became a face millions of children across America grew up with, without even realizing they were watching greatness in its early form. To some, it looked silly. A grown man in costumes, reading words aloud to puppets. But Freeman didn't treat it like a joke. He gave it his all. He believed in educating the next generation. He brought dignity to it, just like he brought dignity to everything he touched. For the first time, Morgan Freeman was on television every day. He had a fan base. He had visibility. And more than anything, he had proof that his voice could reach hearts. But there was still a problem. Hollywood still didn't take him seriously. When The Electric Company ended in 1977, Freeman found himself back where he started, auditioning, struggling, being overlooked. Casting directors still saw him as that guy from the kids' show. They didn't see the depth, the dramatic power, the quiet storm he could bring to the screen. Worse, he was now in his 40s. In an industry that worships youth, especially for black actors, this could have been the end. But Morgan Freeman didn't believe in expiration dates. He believed in evolution. He dove back into theater, where he could control the quality of his work. He took roles in Shakespearean plays, powerful dramas, and off-Broadway productions that earned him critical praise, even if they didn't pay the bills. He played Petruchio in The Taming of the Shrew, and people noticed. They couldn't ignore him anymore. There was too much command in his presence. Too much soul in his delivery. Still, fame didn't come. And he didn't chase it. He didn't need the world to applaud yet. He was focused on being ready, so that when the world finally turned to him, he would already be standing tall. Years passed. Opportunities came, but slowly. Small TV parts. Guest appearances. But nothing that matched his talent. Then came 1987. A film called Street Smart. He played a volatile, dangerous pimp named Fast Black. And it changed everything. Freeman's performance was terrifying, layered, and impossible to forget. He didn't just act, he transformed. Audiences leaned in. Critics raved. Hollywood gasped. He earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. And just like that, after 4 decades of waiting, the door creaked open. He chose stories with meaning. And he was just getting started. Morgan Freeman was 50 years old. Most actors at that age are thinking about winding down. But for Morgan, the real story was only beginning. He had just earned his first Oscar nomination for Street Smart, playing the menacing and magnetic character Fast Black. It was a role that forced Hollywood to pay attention. Suddenly, people were asking, "Who is this guy? And why haven't we been watching him all along?" For the first time in his life, Freeman had leverage. He wasn't just an actor now, he was someone studios wanted. But he didn't rush. He wasn't interested in quick fame or flashy paychecks. He was looking for stories that mattered. Then, in 1989, one of those stories arrived. It was a quiet film about friendship and race in the American South, Driving Miss Daisy. Freeman was cast as Hoke, a kind, wise chauffeur hired to drive an elderly Jewish woman, played by Jessica Tandy. At first glance, it might have looked like another servant role. But Freeman turned it into something else entirely. With his subtle expressions, calm authority, and deep humanity, he transformed Hoke into the heart of the film. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. His power was in stillness, in dignity, in presence. The world fell in love. The film won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Jessica Tandy won Best Actress. Freeman was nominated again, this time for Best Actor. People weren't just noticing him now. They were admiring him, respecting him. Suddenly, Freeman's face and voice were everywhere. He was no longer that guy from the kids' show. He was a leading man at 52. What followed was a series of roles that would cement his legacy. He played Principal Joe Clark in Lean on Me, the no-nonsense educator who turned a failing school around. He was the mentor and sharpshooter Ned Logan in Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's brutal western about redemption and regret. He was Detective Somerset in Seven, a weary, philosophical cop chasing a killer in a dark, twisted world. Each role was different, but one thing stayed the same. Freeman brought soul to every character he played. He could be tough, gentle, funny, broken, wise. He wasn't just acting, he was inhabiting people. And then, in 1994, came a film that changed everything. The Shawshank Redemption. At first, the movie didn't make much noise. It wasn't a big hit in theaters. It didn't win major awards. But word spread. People talked. And soon, it became one of the most beloved films of all time. Freeman played Alice Boyd Redding, Red. A longtime prisoner, a narrator, a friend, a guide. And from the very first line of his voiceover, audiences were hooked. That voice. Smooth, steady, soaked in wisdom and sorrow. It wrapped around the story like a warm blanket, carrying viewers through pain, hope, and, finally, freedom. To this day, The Shawshank Redemption is considered one of the greatest films ever made. And Morgan Freeman's voice is one of the greatest ever heard. After Shawshank, he became a household name. He wasn't just playing characters anymore, he was embodying archetypes. He played the U.S. President in Deep Impact. He played God in Bruce Almighty. He played mentors, judges, detectives, leaders, always with grace and power. And yet, through it all, he remained grounded. There were no scandals, no ego, no headlines about reckless behavior, because Morgan Freeman never let Hollywood change who he was. He wasn't interested in being a celebrity. He wanted to be an artist, a storyteller, a voice for something deeper. What made his rise even more remarkable was its timing. Most actors fear aging. They worry about losing roles. But for Morgan Freeman, age was his weapon. The older he got, the more people listened. Because he didn't just play wise men, he was one. This wasn't a man who stumbled into success. This was a man who earned it, line by line, scene by scene, decade by decade. He taught us that greatness doesn't come from being seen early. It comes from being ready when the world finally sees you. And Morgan Freeman was ready. Morgan Freeman was 50 years old when Hollywood finally opened the door. Not kicked it open, just cracked it. But for a man who had waited decades, that was all he needed. His breakout performance in Street Smart in 1987 had stunned audiences. As Fast Black, a violent yet complex pimp, Freeman didn't just act, he commanded. He earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Critics called him magnetic. Studios finally said his name with respect. But that didn't mean instant stardom. Morgan was still not the typical leading man. He didn't fit the mold. He wasn't young, flashy, or Hollywood polished. He was older, serious, and deep. Too deep for some, but exactly right for the roles that would define him. Then came 1989. A script landed in front of him that would change his path again. A quiet, heartfelt film called Driving Miss Daisy. On paper, it looked simple. An old Jewish woman and her black chauffeur in the segregated South. But Morgan saw more than a driver. He saw humanity. He saw pain and patience and quiet strength. He took the role of Hoke, and what he did with it was extraordinary. He didn't shout. He didn't demand the spotlight. He let silence speak. He let his eyes tell the story. He gave the character dignity, without begging for sympathy. The film went on to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Jessica Tandy won Best Actress. And Morgan Freeman earned his first nomination for Best Actor. He had arrived. Not like a lightning bolt, but like a rising sun. Suddenly, the man Hollywood had ignored for decades was front and center. And what followed was one of the most consistent and respected careers in film history. In 1990, he took on Lean on Me, portraying real-life Principal Joe Clark. It was another no-nonsense role, full of authority and fire. Audiences were captivated by his presence. He wasn't playing roles, he was becoming them. In Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's brutal western, Freeman played Ned Logan, a retired gunslinger pulled back into violence. It was quiet, tragic, and powerful. Then came Seven, a dark, disturbing thriller where Freeman played Detective Somerset, an aging cop on the verge of retirement, chasing a serial killer through a broken city. He didn't need explosions or speeches. He just needed a glance, a pause, a whisper. Because when Morgan Freeman spoke, people listened. And then, The Shawshank Redemption. Released in 1994, the film barely made a ripple at first. It didn't break box office records. It didn't win major awards. But slowly it grew. People started telling their friends, "You have to see this movie." And it spread, one viewer at a time. In the film, Freeman played Alice Boyd Redding, known simply as Red, a lifer in Shawshank Prison, a man who had made peace with his mistakes, a man whose voice would carry the soul of the story. From the first word of narration, it was clear, this was something different. That voice, wise, worn by time, it wrapped around the story like a prayer. Freeman's narration became iconic. His performance? Unforgettable. The Shawshank Redemption would go on to become one of the most beloved films ever made. It's now consistently ranked among the greatest movies of all time. And for many, Morgan Freeman is the reason why. After that, the world couldn't get enough of him. He played God in Bruce Almighty, the U.S. President in Deep Impact. Mentors, leaders, judges, fathers. He was no longer just an actor. Morgan Freeman had finally arrived. But what he did next is what truly set him apart. He didn't chase blockbuster after blockbuster. He didn't sign every big-budget offer that landed on his desk. He was selective, measured. Because for Freeman, success wasn't just about visibility. It was about purpose. In 2005, he won his first Academy Award. Best Supporting Actor for Million Dollar Baby. The role was Eddie "Scrap Iron" Dupree's, an aging ex-boxer turned gym manager. Quiet, stoic, loyal. A man who saw everything, said little, and carried pain behind his eyes. And Freeman delivered it with soul. When he walked on stage to accept that Oscar, there was no wild celebration. No tears. Just grace. Because he knew this wasn't luck. This was years. Decades. A lifetime of preparation meeting its moment. And yet, even with awards and fame, Freeman never saw himself as a star. He saw himself as a vessel. For characters. For stories. For truth. He used his voice, not just in film but in life. He narrated documentaries about the universe, the human brain, and ancient history. Projects like Through the Wormhole introduced science and philosophy to millions of viewers. Freeman didn't just entertain, he educated. When people asked, "Why do you take on so many narrating roles?" he smiled and said, "Because people listen." And they did. Because his voice was more than just sound. It was presence. It was comfort. It was trust. But Morgan Freeman's legacy doesn't end with his career. It stretches far beyond Hollywood. He's spoken out on racism and injustice, not with rage, but with clarity. He supported education, founded charitable programs, and invested in rebuilding Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. He believes in truth, in logic, in action, not performance. He once said, "The best way to end racism is to stop talking about it." It sparked debate. But his point was simple: we are human first. Titles, categories, divisions, those are learned. But dignity? That's universal. And it was dignity he carried through everything he touched. Even late in his career, Freeman continued to deliver unforgettable performances. In the Dark Knight trilogy, he played Lucius Fox, the moral compass of Wayne Enterprises. Not flashy. Not superpowered. Just a man of quiet integrity. In Invictus, he portrayed Nelson Mandela, another symbol of patience, grace, and strength. The film wasn't just a biopic. It was a mirror. One great man playing another. Both shaped by suffering. Both driven by unity. As time went on, Freeman never faded. He aged with elegance. He moved slower, sure. But his presence never dimmed. And today, he stands as more than an actor. He is a voice of wisdom. A symbol of late-blooming greatness. A reminder that you can live your truth, even if it takes time. Morgan Freeman's story is not just about movies. It's about endurance. It's about faith, not in religion, but in the self. It's about what happens when a man refuses to quit, even when the world offers every excuse to stop. He showed us that legends don't always arrive early. Some walk in slowly, through the side door, with their heads down and their hearts full. And when they speak, the world goes silent. This is a man who spent decades unheard, unseen, underestimated. But he never became bitter. He never stopped showing up. And when his moment finally came, he was ready. That's what makes Morgan Freeman a legend. Not the fame, not the roles, but the refusal to give up. The belief that even in silence, your story is still being written. And now, when people hear his voice, they don't just hear an actor. They hear strength. They hear calm. They hear the proof that it's never too late to become everything you were meant to be. His voice became timeless. His journey, unforgettable. And his story, proof that greatness has no deadline. If this inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep watching Legends Unfolded, where every legend has a beginning.
It's Visionary Step 09. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe us for such as interesting videos. Thank you so much.